Abhishek.
Susan. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you doing, Abby?
Great. Nice to meet you after so many days. And thanks for agreeing for this video about ranking.
Oh, that's no problem. It's one of my passionate topics.
Great, great. So Susan, do you want to introduce yourself so the seekers of this video would be able to know you better?
Of course, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Susan Fang, and I'm the director of OxBridge Holdings. Now, we are very UK focused on what we do. So we help students of international families to get into UK schools and universities. And we've been doing this for almost 20 years. Now, my predominant market is China and East Asia. So it's very different from what your strength lies, isn't it, Abby?
Yeah, that's right. So I am Abhi, of course, Abhishek Nakhate. Many of you know me with my Indian name, Abhishek Nakhate, and I'm the director and founder of Zoom Abroad. We are an online platform for international students to help them find the best fit universities, predominantly for UK and from India. So yes, we have a different kind of a crowd and the students there. Yeah. So I thought it would be a good idea to discuss about university ranking because I get so many students. I was chatting to a gentleman yesterday over LinkedIn, and he sent me 4 options to say, Abby, can you please suggest which university should I choose? And in front of each university, he had ranking written. All right. And it was a very difficult question for him to choose because the rankings were almost good for all the 3-4 universities. And I thought it is a very good topic to understand how does the ranking work and how should a student should use the ranking in decision making. So what is ranking according to you? How would you define that, Susan?
There's ranking in every aspect of life, isn't it? When I buy a car, I probably go to some sort of reference point and say that if I want something for speed, what might be my top priority, top 3? It could go according to maybe Porsche, or a Lamborghini, or Ferrari. If you're off, you can spend that much money. So I think same with education universities. So it really depends on what your priority is, isn't it? And then according to your priority, there should be a list of priority of schools. And then that is what I call ranking, but it's different for everybody. And I definitely say, number 1 for me might not be the same as a number 1 for you, Abby. Would you agree?
I partially agree. Yes. In my definition, I would say, I was talking about education in general in one of my videos where I spoke about education versus qualification. And while defining the qualification, I said, the knowledge that you acquire from an institution or from a person, to prove that knowledge, we give a document called degree. All right. And to authenticate that degree, whoever gives that degree, either an institution or a person, needs to be trusted and reputed. So the more trusted and more reputation is from the issuing authority, that mechanism, I would call it as ranking. So whoever is giving me the knowledge, teaching me about any topic and making me skillful. And in some way, I would say this organization or this person is highly reputed and highly trusted in general consensus. That mechanism, I would say, is ranking.
I totally agree. That's a very academic way of looking at things. And definitely highlights where you're coming from, of your background.
Yeah, but then sometimes we do see, because there's so many different type of ranking providers. And first thing to understand for many students is which ranking provider or which ranking to follow. So do you have any differentiation between ranking providers?
Definitely. I mean, first of all, we have to really look at all the different rankings. Are they official? Yeah. From as far as I understand, in any countries around the world, majority of English-speaking countries, none of the rankings that we see are actually provided by the government. So nothing is official per se. And almost all rankings, correct me if I'm wrong, are done by either media or a private conglomerate, which is probably related to their business. The ranking reflects of what their interest is in that business. So I think that's first point of call. We can look at who provides it. That's
very good
key because they see what their interest is to provide that sort of ranking. And then secondly, I think is very important. you have to select your destination first. If you're going for USA, maybe you should look at a ranking provided by somebody or media or organization in the US, like US News Today, or there are other US rankings. You wouldn't really look at a UK provider, would you? Would you agree on that? I mean,
I definitely, yes,
reversely as well. If we're looking at UK, you should really be looking at a UK provider, maybe the Times, maybe the FT. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
these
That's
2
right.
points are what I think.
No, I completely agree, because the more local that you can get, the more information we would hope that the ranking provider would have, because that's where their specialty. So I think we can still categorize ranking into global and local. This is one way to look at it, where we were discussing the other day, the Times Higher Education and QS ranking is more global, whereas you mentioned Guardian and what was
Times.
that? Times
Yes.
are quite domestic focused. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So, as I said, I'm very UK focused in what I do, and I've just been looking at UK universities and schools for the past 20 years. So I'm all about that. And if you're specifying the UK, I think the most reputable rankings are 2. One is the Times, the newspaper Times, and the other one is Guardian. And they've been running their ranking for almost 30 years each. So they have actually accumulated a lot of robust track record. They just didn't spring out of nowhere just like yesterday. So I think that is a reliable source of statistics, at least. You can really track the record of each university's up and down. And I think Times and Guardian are very different. In terms of newspaper, their news outlet, they actually provide different piece of news from a different angle. Times traditionally is much more conservative. They're in a very state and official way, whereas Guardian is much more liberal. They take it with a pinch of salt, almost as that. So it actually reflects in their ranking as well. The Times, it emphasizes more on about the reputation, what you're talking about, of the institution. And where does their reputation come from? Maybe it comes from how well they are perceived by other institutions, and how well their research facilities are, the numbers of papers their faculties have actually published. So it's very research driven. And that kind of ranking, of course, will be made much more favorable to certain types of universities, i.e. Russell Group University, because they're much more research driven, aren't they?
Exactly.
The Guardian, on the other hand, the way they do their ranking, they emphasize more on the experience of the consumers, the students. So they're very customer driven. If you look at all the elements that they measure, the top 3 is all about experiences. Student experience, the teacher experience, they actually measure that as well. And also the course, the satisfaction of the course from both the student point of view and the teacher's angle. And these are 3 are something that, yes, the Times touch about, but it's much lower in their priority. So it's very interesting if you actually decipher through all the different quantitative measurements that they do, and then you can see why there is a difference in the rankings. And how about the global side? What do you think?
No, definitely. I think I see the similarity and the difference in the global side as well. So if I compare the Times Higher Education, which actually is different from Times ranking, as you rightly mentioned. So the Times Higher Education ranking versus the QS ranking, if I compare the Times Higher Education ranking, majorly depends on the teaching quality. So 30% of the weightage goes on the teaching, 30% on the research, and 30% on the citation, which I would say the citation and research is pretty much in the research category on a layman's term. And then it is about international outlook and industry income. All right, so these are the 5 different factors that the Times Higher Education look at. But then if you look at from a bird's eye view, it is teaching and the research having 60% of the focus. All right, but if I drill deeper into the teaching, it is more about reputation, which you rightly mentioned. The reputation, and this reputation is built by surveys from the students. All right, so and they say, how does the student perceive the reputation of the teaching in the particular university, and the same way in the research. So 15% of the 30% of the teaching is basis the surveys, the reputation surveys. The same goes for research as well. And then the various different factors in each different 5 factors would be the student to staff ratio, the income generated from the research, the income generated from the industry, the international collaboration, international student versus domestic student ratio, and so on and so forth. So various other factors, but predominantly it is reputation and research, which Times is majorly dependent upon, I would say, in terms of weightage. But whereas if you look at the QS ranking, it is different than that. It is 40% is majorly into the experience side of it, the students. There is more about the ratio between staff to the student, international student versus domestic student, international student versus the employability, and so on and so forth. So there's this wide difference between the two sets of ranking between the Times Higher Education ranking and the QS ranking.
Let's give a few examples. How about that? So that I think our audience might actually understand a little bit more about the differences between the emphasis on teaching and research and the emphasis on the consumer end of the experience, student experience, that is. So I like to point out between the Times and the Guardian. And again, I'll need to emphasize this is very UK driven, okay? In the Times, the top 10, you will see university big names, the Oxford, Cambridge, St Andrews, all up there. But 2 names in particular, I want to say, Imperial College, I think it's pretty high up, number 5 or something, and UCL maybe 7, 8 or something. But anyhow, they're both in the top 10. If you look at the Guardian, Imperial, I think it's number 9 or 10. It's quite low. I mean, still within top 10, but compared to the 5, difference, eh? And UCL is nowhere to be seen in the top 10. I think it's top 15, but not in the top 10. I mean, wouldn't that surprise you? Because UCL, Imperial are both part of what we call the G5, the top 5 most renowned UK universities. And yet in the Guardian ranking, it's not even in top 5. That goes to say, these are institutions who are very good at what they do in terms of research. And when I say teaching, not necessarily about imparting the knowledge, but it just says that their professors are probably very well educated and have the knowledge, but whether or not they can teach well or make the students feel they're really well taken after, not necessarily so. So I think as international students, we need to really bear that in mind.
No, I completely agree. I do not believe that all coaches are good players. If you look into the sporting terms, and in the same way, all researchers may not be a good teacher. So for me particularly, and it is my personal opinion, I do not see the research element would be applicable to all subjects that international student or any student willing to study. But if you see on the Times, almost 60%, Times Higher Education, almost 60% weightage is going towards research, combining citation and research element, whereas in the QA, the citation and the student is giving approximately 40%. All right. So you would see that the research is definitely given a lot of emphasis. But think about a subject where your priority is more about employability. All right. Your priority is something to do with artistic design and creativity. And I do not know, I might be wrong. I think research do not have a lot to play in this, in these kind of domains. And on the other side as well, if you see the older the universities, like Oxford is what, 1,000-year-old now, almost 1,096 was the first somewhat formed Oxford University, and Cambridge around 800-plus-year-old. Of course, if these universities are that old, their facilities, their research capabilities are, of course, that advanced, and it is very wrong to compare, in my personal opinion, a young and newly born innovative university, which may have a very high potential, but not ranking to compete with that. So I normally suggest students to see what is more important for you, right? If it is the employability, if it is the environment, if it is just the tag, depends. What do you think? How can the student should use university ranking to make a decision?
I fully echo what you're saying in that it really boils down to the priority of the student. Now, first of all, the student has to understand, am I going to go into research, like going to continue to study in the ivory tower? If that were the case, particularly if you're doing something like STEM, everything's laboratory driven, everything depends on the research outcome, then maybe a research embodied institution would be a very good option for that student. On the other hand, if the student knows very well their future is in management, is in banking, is in accounting, or in architecture, something really pragmatic.
Exactly.
They study for a couple of years and they're out there building their career. Perhaps a research-driven institution is not their ideal fit. So what does that say? You have to refer to the ranking that most highlight the institution will be serving to their best interest. If you're research-driven, go for the Times higher, go for the Times. But if you're more pragmatic, go for the Guardian, go for the QS. I mean, I know it's not as simple as that, but at least, we generalize it. Yeah.
But I think the students have to, 100%. I think ranking could be just one factor of the decision making, but the students have to dig deeper into the course modules. Who's teaching me? Who's that professor? And what is the modules that I'm going to study? Is it in line with my long-term plan? And sometimes people or the student do not even look that far. All right. So I'm going to do MBA finance. Okay, great. But then fintech is taking big leaps and changes. Are you in line with the technology? Is fintech a part of your module? And who's teaching that fintech? Is it somebody who has implemented Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies or, I don't know, I'm just giving a vague example, or somebody who has a fintech practical knowledge. So I'm a big fan of who is going to teach me. I'm paying so much money. I want to know, yes, university as an institution is, of course, as a facility is great, but then I want to know who is going to teach me, who would be my professors, and who is the program leaders. And research, it's not only about they need you and you need them. It is a mutual relationship. It is, so I think the students need to dig deeper into what value they're going to get from this program, and ranking could be one adding factor to make such decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree. International students spending top dollars to come all the way to the UK and the US. So they need to have some sort of reference point. And ranking could play that part, especially if they need to demonstrate to whoever's paying their fees, could be daddy and mommy bank. They need to show them that, this university, they're bona fide, they're reputable. But on the other hand, in addition, I mean, I totally agree. Who's your master? Because you're a student like an apprentice. You're going to a master to learn. You got to go to which Yoda or which Star Trek member is going to actually, the Jedi, who's going to impart that skills to you. That's quite key, isn't it? I would like to offer something in addition to that. I would like students to consider the people around you. Okay, teaching is not just a one-way broadcast. You learn from your teacher, but you also learn from your network, your peers. And why is that important? If eventually you want to stay, say if you come to the UK and you want to stay in the UK or stay in Europe to work, perhaps you should look at a university that has already built up a very good cohort or rapport with European companies and UK companies.
Exactly.
However, if you want to go back to India, want to go back to China to work, then perhaps you should look at who has the bigger alumni network out back home. And maybe that is when the name of the institution is much more important, because after all, you're bringing your certificate, your degree back to your home country to make or break your career. And people will know much more about the higher ranked university. So I think there's two different ways of looking at the league table. Now, that's another name for rankings, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree. And I totally forgot about this topic of the cohort that you are studying in. And that's where the ranking would come in and plays an important role, because the higher ranking universities are called also selective universities. It means they are really selective on who they recruit or who they allow to sit in the class. It means that you are talking and sitting with some of the elite academics, some of the good students, and you are hanging around with that kind of a community. And of course, that has a very good impact. Again, in my opinion, it is a good environment that makes a lot of difference in your overall personality, in your career. But it is, again, one factor. It is more about what is your contribution as well? Where do you see it? And I believe the university is a phase, at least in my life, university was a phase where actually I started to learn more about myself. I started to learn what I actually want, what I actually like, how do I enjoy my life. So that is a realization phase, and you would need to taste different flavors of your life while you are in the university. So this kind of a cohort is definitely important, and ranking can be one factor of that for sure. In one of the analogy I was giving to another student, he was like, how do I use ranking? No. The question was, I have University A and University B. This is a better ranked university, but I like the modules of the University B. How do I make a decision? I was like, okay, imagine that you're going to the shop to buy a suit, right? And you went to the Armani suit. You wouldn't just buy it because the material is great or it is the most expensive. You would buy it if it fits well with you. If it fits well and if you look good within it, right? So it is, the first thing is to see if it fits well. And on top of it, if this material is good and the reputation is good and the ranking is good, it adds the feather on the top. It's the cherry on the cake. So my philosophy of choosing a university is all about making a best fit choice. What fits well? What fits well within your long-term goal? What fits well within your own skill set? What are you actually looking for? And you got to be a selective student rather than just looking for a selective university. So be very selective, in my opinion.
Yeah. A lot of the students that I've encountered, particularly in East Asia, they're very aspiring and they're high achievers. They all want to go to the best ranked universities. And that's really quite concerned for me, because many of these students, yes, through our help, maybe we can push them and get in, but I wonder whether they can actually successfully graduate. Because it's all very well to get into in university, but ultimately you need to get your degree. If you don't get it, then you're there for nothing. You just wasted your time and your money. Yeah. So, ranking definitely is a good indicator, but you need to also delve deeper, like you do with your students, what modules they actually offer, because the same course could all be called marketing, but each university have a different way of running their courses. And I always ask my students to look at how they're going to be eventually assessed. Now, this is something you're not going to see it from the ranking, but you do have a rule of thumb. The higher they are ranked, in terms of university, the more stringent there are in terms of letting students graduate. Maybe the pass rate is going to be higher, and maybe you'll be asked to do more exams, and the thesis you write could have more workouts. Can you actually handle it? When you go to these selective universities, you should be self-selected in the first place. So you need to bring the beef, as I say. Going into one thing, you got to get out and with the degree. Otherwise, it's all just futile.
Exactly. Because this is the part of your youth which is so important for you. You want to be making sure that where do you want to spend this 3 years or even 1 year for master, whatever you want to do, because there is a huge cost associated with it. It's not only the cost in terms of currency, in terms of money, it is the time that is
it is time.
So the students have to look into, and I would say, why not just look at all the 4 rankings and see where it fits in. And one other important thing I forgot to ask you, the subject-based ranking again plays a very important role. If you are looking for a specific subject that you want to study in a specific university, look out for a subject-based ranking for that. So, and the industrial connection in that subject or in that discipline, that again, depending on what discipline that you're going. If you are going for a PhD course, of course, you want to look at the citation and the research element of it. But if you are going into some sort of a technology-based or industrial-focused courses, environmental energy or supply chain logistics, even even the management courses, you got to look at the industry connections and the industry connection part of the ranking.
Yeah. Oh, you picked up a very strong point here, and it reminds me of one of the students. This takes me back at least a decade or so. She graduated from the #1 universities in Taiwan, and very, very clever and academic student. However, for her master's, she wants to go into sonic design, design of sound. It's a very unique discipline that not many universities will offer. But we managed to find her a couple of, a few, maybe 3 or 5 options. And eventually I said, would you rather go to a top one, say, I cannot remember what the top one, possibly Southampton, was somewhere quite high up, Russell Group at least. And another one was Middlesex, which is in London, but apparently so, they're the best in sonic design. And guess where she chose? This young lady, she chose Middlesex. And I was so shocked, but impressed at the same time, because she came from very academic background, already the #1 university, yet she understands, that is nothing if the course doesn't fit right. She chose a university, much more practical, maybe not as renowned as, say, Southampton, I cannot remember whether it was, but I remember she went and chose Middlesex. And now she's one of the top sonic designers in the whole of Taiwan. And I think she chose well. Yeah.
No, definitely, because many younger university, what we also call in the UK, the modern university or millennial plus universities, because they are younger, they are more energetic, all right? As an organization, the leadership is more innovative. And especially in the COVID situation, you might have seen, they are the quick to maneuver. They are quick to adapt. And that's what probably the today's world require, the adaptability within the situation changing around you, the environment changing around you. And it does not mean that the research-focused universities are not adaptive, but then, in my personal opinion, they are very bureaucratically placed to come in. It may take a bit longer to be implemented, So that also means you might have heard about this new concept of Challenger University, or all over the LinkedIn that a couple of our friends are talking about. And the Challenger universities, of course, do not fit in within the purview of any ranking or the league table, because they are a different, innovative kind of a educational institution. But it is very skill focused, it is very employment focused, and it is very industrial focused. So it does not fit in probably with the research angle of it all. So yeah, it is all about fitting in the right place, isn't it?
Yeah. So lots of things for our students to consider. And of course, you probably won't get there in just overnight, or it will take time to let all this sink in. But I always say, if you don't get where you are and you need a little bit of support, always just ask for help. People like Abby, people like myself, we're always there for you. And there's no embarrassment to ask for help, because we've been there and done that. We've got so many years of experience, and we're happy to share that with you, so that you will spend less time and less effort in finding your own way.
So if we combine our experience, Susan, it would be somewhere around 34 years of experience.
Yeah.
It
makes me feel I'm very old.
So that is 20 plus 14. So yeah, definitely, unless you ask, you won't get. And the reason, at least I am, and I know Susan is in this industry, is because we love talking to students. We love knowing your concerns, and we try to help out students in a way. And sometimes you go out of the way to understand your actual need, and then try to figure out what actually fits in within your career. So yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions within ranking or how to choose. We would be doing few more videos and podcasts regarding international education topics. So stay tuned and look after yourself. Happy recruitment.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. And I hope to see you very soon. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.